POE students, here to talk to you about how programs make decisions. In a previous video we talked about while loops and how they are useful. I'm going to use a while loop here. I put in the condition 1 equals 1, so I'll have a program that will always be running in here. So in this case it's kind of like our brains. We always want our brains to be active and to be analyzing situations so we can make decisions. Same case here. I have my test bed over to the left. You guys will see it over here in the picture. And what I want to do is I want a simple program to make a decision. If the limit switch is pressed, I want it to just turn on the right motor. If the bump switch is pressed, I want it to turn on the left motor. So essentially how this works is we go into control structures over here on the left and we have if statements. If I just go ahead and grab an if statement and I can bring it down here, you can see that the condition is if something's going on, and then what is my statement going to be within that if condition. So this actually is the wrong one. I'd rather grab one that has the body to it. So this is what it would be. So if something's going on, what's going to happen between the curly braces? So in this case, what I want to happen is I want the right motor run. So I'm just going to type in code, and we've done this before, pretty simple, just to start the right motor. And so this doesn't go on forever. I'm going to set it up so it starts the right motor, it waits, let's change that to 2 seconds, and then stops the right motor. So this is what I want to happen. I can grab another one over here, and I'm going to take this, keep my pseudocode with my code, start the right motor if the limit switch is pressed, over here, start the left motor. So again, kind of the same deal. Start motor, left motor. Okay, so I've got both things that I want to happen. Now what I need to do is I need to fill in the condition portion of my if statements. So it's going to look here and say, well, if this, something's happening, then do this. If this is true, do this. So first I need the limit switch is pressed. So what I want to do is I want the program to look at whatever the value the limit switch is putting out. So in this case, I'm going to use a command called sensor value here. And it always starts, parentheses, and inside there I need to say, okay, what sensor value am I looking for? So in this case, I want it to look for my limit switch, and then outside I need to tell what I want it to be. So in this case, I need to say the sensor value limit switch equals 1. Now in this case, I know the capitalization kind of does matter, or it's going to throw me a yellow error. So we'll see if I remember that. Okay, so it's going to say if the sensor value, or the value of the sensor for the limit switch, equals 1, then go ahead and start the right motor, wait, stop. For over here, we're going to use the same context, and this is going to be sensor value bump switch equals 1. And you can see things do highlight, turn to red if that's the case. So I'm going to go ahead and compile my program. I'm just going to see if this is going to spit out any errors, which it doesn't, and I'm going to download to the robot. So let's see here. I'm going to download. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my debugger windows and take a look at my motors in this case. So you can see my motors down here. So if I go ahead and I hit the limit switch, so I'm going to go over here and hit this. The motor is trying to run, but it might not have enough voltage. Let's see about the bump switch here. Alright, so my bump switch does turn on the left motor. It is turning on the right motor, but you can see here I actually made an error in my program. I did not give it a speed here. So I need to go ahead and give the right motor a speed. Common mistakes like that can happen. Be careful. Check your code before you go on. So now let's see here. There we go. So now it's going and spinning. If I hit the bump switch, it's going to go ahead and spin. And I can keep going back and forth because this program's inside a while loop. It will run forever. So that's really nice in this case. Program can make a decision right there. But there are going to be times where it's going to need to make more than one decision. So let's go ahead and take a look at my next file. So in this case, what if I want to start the right motor if the limit switch is pressed, start the left motor, okay, so same thing here, but what if I want to set the servo? So now I'm going to talk about the servo here. If the light sensor is above 500, so if this light sensor is above 500, this will set to 127. If the sonar senses anything within a 30 centimeter range, it will set the servo to 127. So talking about my servo again right here connected to this gear. So now I've got a lot of things to do. Now unfortunately with programming, if we go back to this one, a program can only make one decision at a time. So one way we could get by with doing this is something we call the structured if-else statement. So in this case, if we bring in this, we could do a structured if-else, where actually inside of this would be another if-else, and then if we wanted to, we could even put in another if-else. Now this seems really confusing, but essentially what it would do is it would allow us to make one decision at a time. So it would look and say, okay, if this condition is not true, then it's going to go to else. When it goes to the else, the first thing it sees is another set of decisions, and it will look at this condition. Well, if this condition is not true, it's going to go to this else, which is going to make another decision. So you can see here that we can actually put in these different if-else statements inside of our program, and we can do something called nesting to get these to work. This is one way. And you know, before I go any further, what I should show off is essentially what is going on with an if-else statement. So an if-else statement will just take only one condition, and if that condition is not true, it'll just run the other one. So in this case, if I wanted to show how to do this here, if I wanted one of these to be running, I could just get rid of this. I could say else. Now what it will say is if the left start the left motor if the limit switch is not pressed. So that'd be one way to use it, because it's going to take a look at this condition, say, oh, it's false, it's going to immediately run the left motor. So if I just show you how that works real quick, as soon as I start the program, the limit switch is not pressed, and it should just run the left motor right away. So let's just double check here. Okay, so you can see here it's running the left motor right away. If it is one, it will start the right motor. So if I do that, you can see that it also starts the right motor as well. And then the left motor is actually turned off right here. As soon as I turn that off, the left motor is spinning. So that's one way when it's based on one condition, which is the limit switch. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that, and I'm going to go back here. So this is one way, but this can be really confusing because things are nested inside each other. So instead what I want to show off is the if and the else if. So this is a way to put multiple decisions together, get these things to work. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to copy this, because I've got a lot of this already written down. Be ashamed to have to rewrite all this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go if the sensor value, the limit switch equals 1, we're going to start the right motor in this case. Else, and we're going to do what's called an else if in this case, or an if else. So else if, and now we're going to plug in our stuff again. So we're going to say sensor value, and this time we're going to look at the bump switch equals 1. It's going to go here. So let's go ahead. We've already got this pseudocode taken care of. We're going to take this pseudocode, plug it right there, and we're going to continue on. So we have one if the limit switch is equal 1, do this. If else if the sensor value of the bump switch equals 1, do this. And we're going to do else if. And this time we're going to look at the light sensor. So we're going to say sensor value the light sensor. And we want this, the light sensor is above 500, so we're going to use Boolean logic. We're going to put a greater than symbol. We're going to put an open parentheses, and we're going to say set our servo, which is named servo motor, to 127, and the curly brace. And we have one more, else if, and this will be sensor value, my sonar, and my sonar needs to be within, so it's got to be less than 30 centimeters. Curly braces, set servo, servo motor, negative 127. Okay, so let's just put my pseudocode in the correct places here. Alright, so let's see here. This else if has its curly braces, this one does, this one does, this one does, the while does, and above that's the tax main. So let's just go ahead and compile this. Let's see if I get thrown any errors, which I don't. So let's go ahead and download to the robot. And let's start our program, see if anything happens. So we start our program, nothing happens, which is good because nothing has been decided yet. So we're just going to go through each of the sensors and see what works. So in this case, let's touch the limit switch. Okay, so the motor's going to run. It runs for 2 seconds. Fantastic. Let's try the bump switch. Okay, the left motor is running. There it is. For the next one, if the light sensor is greater than 500, so to do that, we're just going to go ahead and cover the light sensor. When that happens, the limit switch did actually, or I'm sorry, the servo did change positions. And of course, when our sonar senses anything, let's go to our sensors down here. So our sonar is at 63. If I just move my hand over there, it does change. So I can kind of go back and forth between those two. And my limit switch will change. So you can see I put a little metal indicator on there so you can see that moving. And I can just continue to have it make decisions in the end in this case. So it was just working right there. Looks like my battery's dying on here, but it is going. So there, ladies and gentlemen, using the first if and then the else if structures, it can make multiple decisions at one time. So when you get to your final project and you are looking, okay, how can my material sorter make decisions? This is the structure you want to look at.